Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
I'm Kourtney Smith.
And I'm Elyse Sharp.
And we are two nerds who are here to make Shakespeare easier to understand.
In this podcast, we will explore as many dimensions to Shakespeare's plays as we can by looking at the text, examining the historical context in which the plays were written, and how his plays are viewed through modern lenses of feminism, racism, classism, colonialism, nationalism, ableism, all of the isms.
We will discuss how his plays shaped both the past and present, and, as theater makers, how his plays can be responsibly performed today, all while trying our best to approach his works without giving in to bardolatry.
So, Shakespeare anyone?
Hi, listeners. Want to support Shakespeare Anyone? Visit shakespeareanyone.com/support or check out the links in our episode description. Now, onto the episode. Welcome to another Shakespeare Anyone mini-episode. In these mini-episodes, we'll be exploring topics that are related to Shakespeare but aren't necessarily connected to whatever play we've been discussing.
And they're mini because, well, they're shorter than our other episodes. They're like quartos if the regular episodes are folio editions.
In today's episode, we'll be talking about astrology and its role in early modern England and Shakespeare's plays. Now, we've talked about astrology a little bit in our Four Humors mini-episode from 2021. In that episode, we mentioned that astrology was actually a large consideration for medical practices in medieval and early modern England. But that's not the only use for early modern astrology, and astrology's impact on society was so great that Shakespeare references it often.
For example, in Act 1, Scene 3 of Twelfth Night, Sir Toby explains that he and Sir Andrew are great dancers because they were born under Taurus, to which Sir Andrew disagrees, saying, "Taurus? That's sides and heart," correcting Sir Toby's attribution of their dancing to their zodiac. But Sir Toby incorrectly corrects Sir Andrew, saying, "No, sir, it is legs and thighs," and prompts Sir Andrew to dance. You see, the signs of the zodiac were thought to govern different parts of the body, and the joke here is that Sir Toby and Sir Andrew mix up the sign and organ by crediting the zodiac sign they're born under, Taurus, for making them great dancers, when really that sign governs the throat and neck, referring to their great drinking. More on that later.
In Julius Caesar, some characters question the credibility of astrology, omens, and fate by rejecting the astrological interpretations of astronomical events that other characters make and follow. Cassius tells Brutus not to read into the celestial signs because, quote, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves," unquote. King Lear's Gloucester credits the sun and the moon for causing bad events in the play. Even Romeo and Juliet are star-crossed lovers. Clearly, Shakespeare was influenced by astrology.
But what is astrology? And what was astrology for early modern England in particular?
According to the Oxford English Dictionary, astrology is the practical application of both the medieval art and science of astronomy. Astronomy is the scientific study of matter and phenomena in the universe, or studying objects that naturally exist in the universe, such as the moon, the sun, planets, and stars. Astrology is the interpretation of those celestial objects, which creates a worldview that zodiac signs, dates, and natural phenomena and meteorological events influence a person's personality and impacts the events in one's life. Modern astrology in the West tends to be based on ancient Greek astrology. Today, astrology and astronomy are considered two different fields of knowledge, but they were closely linked in Shakespeare's day.
In fact, astrology was a sort of umbrella term for both the art and science of the universe. One branch of astrology was known as natural astrology, which, like today's astronomy, was, quote, the calculation and prediction of natural phenomena and meteorological events, such as the measurement of time, the times of tides, and eclipses, on the basis of astronomical observation, unquote. So, studying the universe to track the movement of the sun, moons, planets, and stars for practical purposes such as understanding seasons and weather patterns. However, in the 17th century, this field of knowledge was reclassified simply as astronomy, not astrology.
A second branch of astrology was known as judicial astrology. Judicial astrology was, quote, the supposed art of foretelling or counseling in human affairs by interpretation of the motions of the planets and stars, unquote, and it can be classified as star divination or astromancy. The art of astrology was practiced as a means of predicting human affairs. Astrology is not supported by modern science, and it lost its intellectual credibility by the 18th century. But it still has popular appeal.
Natural astrology observes the movement of the celestial realm, and judicial astrology interprets this movement in order to create meaning for the terrestrial realm. And this connection between the human, terrestrial, and celestial realms guided daily life and Shakespeare's plots.
But first, we want to recognize in advance that we are only presenting a basic understanding of astrology and astrology specific to Shakespeare. The stars and the planets have seemed to guide human activity and human understanding of the world since the beginning of time, which makes sense. Without modern clocks or science, early civilizations looked to the trends in the sky and studied the celestial in order to plan migration, agriculture, and other societal traditions. But, like always, as a Shakespeare podcast, we are going to focus on Shakespeare's time.
Astrology in Elizabethan England was similar to the Ptolemaic astrology codified 1,400 years ago with its fixed set of astronomical assumptions about the sun, moon, planets, and stars. But it had an Elizabethan character. So, let's dive deeper into astrology during the 1500s and 1600s.
Early modern English astrology structured the movement of the stars into 12 houses that had been mathematically mapped out over the centuries and then interpreted those houses. According to scholar Peter Forshaw, to calculate a horoscope reading, an astrologer would consult an ephemeris, or table composed of planetary positions divided into different days and times of the day. The table was also informed by the 12 zodiac signs and the Ptolemaic planets. By reading these factors, an astrologer created significance for human affairs.
In the early 16th century, astrology was mostly limited to the nobility, who consulted court astrologers on their affairs. For example, what will be the successes and failures of their life? What should or shouldn't they do? When should they do it? What or who should they avoid? The court astrologer would do a horoscope chart to answer the questions for that noble person.
And the exclusivity of court astrologers meant that common people had less contact with astrology. Astrological knowledge for common people was mostly folkloric astrology because, quote, no major native astrological works had ever been published in the country, unquote. But that changed in the latter 16th century when there was a rise in astrology due to three factors: religious reform, mathematical revival, and the development of the English almanac.
After the English Reformation, many supernatural sacraments were removed from religious practice. This left a gap in society that, according to Bernard Kapp, astrologers supplied. Astrologers filled the need for, quote, the harnessing of supernatural powers to help men avert danger and overcome obstacles in their daily lives, unquote. So, of course, this caused religion to oppose astrology, accusing astrologers of distracting people and moving them away from God.
But while, overall, religion had issues with astrology, it's important to note that there actually were some religious leaders who were astrologers themselves. According to Kelly Downs, one reputable Puritan preacher, John Booker, defended astrology in a pamphlet, quote, the stars are letters and the heavens God's book, which day and night we may at pleasure look, and thereby learn of brightly how to live, unquote. Booker argued that, because God made the celestial realm, People should study astrology because it gives us guidance and actually brings us closer to God.
Astrology was also revived in English mathematics because, quote, applied mathematical sciences like navigation required a firm grounding in astronomy, unquote. Mathematicians studied the universe as natural astrologers, and many tested and documented their research in order to systematize astrology. They were trying to do things like measure the distance between comets or planets or stars in order to understand the universe. And because these astrologers conducted their research using pen and paper, they are why, according to scholar Lauren Cussell, we know so much about what was going on with Renaissance astrology. These natural astrologers gave us beautiful and systematic documents to use as references in our own studies.
The mathematician, astrologer, astronomer, alchemist, navigator, and political advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, John Dee, is perhaps the most famous astrologer of Shakespeare's time. Dee was a close advisor to the Queen, who served as her intelligence and counseled her on matters of the nation, including building a British empire. Dee was also the Queen's court astrologer, who read her coronation chart and selected her coronation date. We can learn fragmentary details about Dee's life based on how he used astrology to record details about his own life. According to Dr. Benjamin Woolley, quote, Dee would use a combination of the Mars and Venus astrological signs to indicate in the margin of one of his diaries when he and his wife had sex, and the timing was likely to do with fertility and astrology, unquote. He also used astrological signs to mark other important days, such as the day when his mom died. Dee is an Elizabethan figure whose knowledge of astrology, alchemy, and the supernatural often links him to Shakespeare's Prospero.
But perhaps most importantly, a boom in almanac productions made astrology accessible to the general public. An almanac is an annual table or book of tables that contains a calendar of months and days with astronomical data and calculations, ecclesiastical and other anniversaries, and other information such as astrological and meteorological forecasts. While English publishers had translated foreign almanacs since the 1400s, Andrew Board was the first Englishman to publish an English almanac in 1545, followed by Anthony Ascombe's in 1548 through 57. By 1600, quote, 600 almanacs had been published by the English press, unquote.
These publications gave common people access to astrological forecasts that were previously gatekept by court astrologers. According to Catherine Walker, almanacs, quote, both served the useful function of tracing the weather and featured highly idiosyncratic elements. There is something for everyone in this genre, including medical advice, when to shave, bathe, or have sex, religious diatribe, debates on the role of providence or fate, scientific explanations, political speculation, and snide professional rivalry among almanac authors, unquote. We can learn a lot about early modern people and their affairs based on the contents of almanacs from their time.
And playwrights referenced almanacs in their works. For example, the Mechanicals in A Midsummer Night's Dream comically consult an almanac to incorrectly determine the date of the full moon, or quote-unquote moonshine, to light their play. In Ben Jonson's Every Man Out of His Humor from 1599-1600, a farmer named Sordito frantically reads the almanac text on stage to poke fun at the quote-unquote tediousness of almanacs for their predictions.
To go back to Sir Toby and Sir Andrew, an almanac may feature an illustration of a zodiac man or woman segmented by the zodiac signs to signal each constellation's power over certain body parts. Edward Pond's 1609 Zodiac Man indicated each zodiac's governance of body parts as follows. Aries governed the head and face, Taurus governed the neck, Gemini governed the arms and shoulders, Cancer governed the stomach and breast, Leo governed the heart and neck, Virgo governed the belly and sides, Libra governed the navel and buttocks, Scorpio governed the reproductive parts, Sagittarius governed the thighs, Capricorn governed the knees, Aquarius governed the legs, and Pisces governed the feet.
Being born under Aries, Kourtney is governed by the head, while I, being born under Taurus, am governed by the neck, just like Sir Andrew, Sir Toby, and Shakespeare.
The debates about the legitimacy of astrology can also be seen in Thomas Middleton's 1618 mock almanac called The Owl's Almanac, which ridicules, quote, the esoteric materials accompanying the astrologer, unquote. This mock almanac's title page includes the image of an astrologer owl in a study with astrological paraphernalia as commentary. Inside, social ills are, quote, readily predicted with or without stars, unquote, aided by common pictorials of the almanac, quote, emblems for early modern conceptions of the body's relationship to the heavens, unquote.
The early modern almanac kind of reminds us of modern astrology apps like CoStar or those daily astrology columns that used to be posted in newspapers, magazines, and websites alike.
But for a modern person, a surprising use of astrology might be the use of astrology in medical practices. Medical practitioners of all walks of life used astrology in diagnosing medical ailments and/or prescribing cures. Whether you were a professional physician from the Royal College of Physicians of London, the only physicians authorized to practice medicine, or a countryside wise woman using simple medicine, or an empiric or unlicensed physician, the heavens and their astrological signs guided your medical practice. Even the guild of the apothecary, who prepared medicines for physicians, relied on astrology in their concocting.
If you were going to see your physician for a checkup or a diagnosis, a physician might create a birth horoscope for your visit in an attempt to explain what is ailing you on this day. Again, according to scholar Lauren Cussell, these charts would include 4 key pieces of information. 1. A question and personal information about the patient. 2. A chart of the heavens at the moment of the question. 3. The astrologer's judgment about the case and remedies. And 4. Extra information. Whether you're born under Taurus or visiting your physician during the age of Aquarius might be of great medical importance to you and your health.
One famous astrologer physician is the notorious Simon Forman. While Simon Forman is not necessarily a household name, he is a figure that we know a lot about because he wrote a lot about his life and his studies in astrology, medicine, and the occult. It is alleged that Forman had 8,000 patient visits during his 15-year medical practice. His casebooks from 1596 to 1603, quote, contain up to 2,000 records each year and document the intimate details about the health, fortunes, and romantic activities of numerous Londoners, unquote. As a physician, Forman cast horoscope charts on his patients, documenting 10,000 astrological consultations during a 6-year period. He also cast charts for himself to monitor his health and predict the affairs of his own life. Forman taught his method to physician Richard Napier, and, between the two, we have roughly 50,000 documented cases. Forman documented so much about his own life that he also documented accounts of seeing Shakespeare's Macbeth, The Winter's Tale, and Cymbeline.
Although there was an allegedly supernatural side to astrology, the countryside wise woman was well respected within her community, and her knowledge of astrology was usually seen as legitimate. That is, until something went wrong, and then she would, of course, be accused of witchcraft. And men astrologers were also accused of participating in quote-unquote devilish arts. A 1620 anti-astrology pamphlet by John Melton cultivated this fear. Melton's pamphlet, Astrologaster, or the Figure Caster, features a woodcut of an astrologer in his study and describes the scene. Quote, before a square table on which lay a huge book in folio wide open full of strange characters. Not far from that, a silver wand, a surplice, a watering pot, with all the superstitious or rather gained instruments of his cousin art. And to put a fairer colour on his black and foul science, on his head he had a 4-cornered cap, on his back a fair gown, but made of a strange fashion. In his right hand he held an astrolabe, in his left a mathematical glass. Unquote. Milton goes on to criticize this astrologer as fraudulent and dubious towards his steady and devoted clientele. But Cussell points out that during the early modern period, the occult could be seen in one of 3 ways: as natural, as the actions of the devil, or as an act of fraudulence and trickery.
So, when we read or hear Shakespeare refer to the celestial realm full of stars, moons, planets, we are encountering early modern astrological beliefs that might go unnoticed today. Astrology guided and influenced human affairs and even the affairs of entire nations. It permeated society so much that Shakespeare's Globe featured a painting of the heavens on the stage's ceiling for the characters and audience to see. As Kelly Downs reflected, this stagecraft choice represents how, quote, astrology was the backdrop of people's lives in general, unquote.
But in spite of astrology's popularity, it was also a controversial field of study that was accused of being a supernatural art or total quackery and, ultimately, didn't stand the test of time. According to scholar Jonathan Sade, quote, the moment that signaled the end of astrology as a very serious undertaking was the moment in which Galileo looked through his telescope and looked at the sun, and he saw sunspots, unquote. The importance of this is, quote, it suggests that randomized change is happening everywhere in the universe, unquote, rather than fixed fate outlined by astrology. So, was Cassius correct? Maybe. But the qualities about astrology that captivated early modern people still captivates people today. Some things never change.
And that's astrology in early modern England.
Thank you for listening.
I'm Kourtney Smith.
And I'm Elyse Sharp.
This is Shakespeare Anyone?
Thank you so much for listening to Shakespeare Anyone. Works referenced in this episode are available in the episode description. Our theme music is Neverending Minute by Sounds Like Sander.
If you would like to support us, visit shakespeareanyone.com/support or check out the links in our episode description. You can also hit the subscribe button, like us, leave a comment, write a review, share us on social media, tell a friend about us, all the things. We'd appreciate it. For more, you can visit our website, shakespeareanyone.com, or follow us on Instagram at ShakespeareAnyonePod.
Now, because you listened all the way to the end of the credits, here is a completely random Shakespeare quote for you.
From The Winter's Tale, Act 4, Scene 4, said by Shepherd. O sir, you have undone a man of 63 that thought to fill his grave in quiet, yea, to die upon the bed my father died, to lie close by his honest bones. But now some hangman must put on my shroud and lay me where no priest shovels in dust.